And we good? Jean, give me a thumbs up or something. No.
You're good. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jean, for having us. I know this is going to be a lot of information we're going to throw at you this morning. So hopefully these slides, we'll share them with Jean so she could share them with you. That will help our contact information. So if you have any questions, you can follow up with us, email or I could say that probably email is best. It just gives us time to research for the answer for you and then get back with you. Or if you call, we might need to give you a call back if we need to research it. So again, Jean, thank you for having me and thank you for everyone on the call. This right here is our contact information for our district office. We have myself and Cindy and Leo, just the three of us that work in our lender relations side of the house. And so as Jean mentioned, we do have 5 counties that we cover. I have all the ones in red. So you guys are in the Victoria area are definitely fit in my box. And then we also have Leo who handles everything in green. And then Cindy handles those 10 in yellow. So I have 23 of those counties that I service. And most of them will be in the areas that you're calling from. Probably. I know we have different ones from different areas, but most of you I think are or in the Victoria or Dimmitt, LaSalle, McMillan, Live Oak B, Goliad, Refugio, Karnes counties. So hopefully we'll be able to connect and I can help you with any of your questions. So just a little history about the SBA. We've been around since 1953 and we are here to help the Americans start, grow, or expand, and even recover from their businesses. Especially when we have those COVID times, we had a lot of programs available to small businesses to help them through that, as Jean mentioned. And then we also have some other disaster loans that we'll talk about briefly in the slide deck. And the SBA does this through the 3 C's of the SBA. We have our capital program. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to briefly mention our certification program, and of course, our counseling, such as the Small Business Development Center, and we have other resource partners as well that we work with. So I guess I should just kind of tell you a little bit. We have a lot of different resources through the SBA to empower entrepreneurs in being successful and getting access to capital. We also have those resource partners that I talked about. We have experts the experts and counseling services that can help you with any you're at the starting just an idea or you're trying to expand or grow. So we have some resources, and as Jean mentioned, those are at no cost to you. The SBA does have a great website. So if you haven't visited our website recently, we have made some upgrades and changes, and hopefully it's more user friendly. It's always a little challenging when they change things up at the beginning. So I'm still challenged and trying to find everything that I used to have bookmark. But it's great to see that we're continuing doing updates and making it have more information that's important to business owners. So there's a lot of great information on there if you haven't visited our website. We also have, if you're not in our district area and you're looking for a local resource, we do have a link to connect you with those local resources wherever you are. We also have information on lender match. So if you're looking for a lender that participates in our program, but somebody you bank with, but you're looking to connect with us with the lender matches, our lenders go in, they fill some questionnaires of what they're looking for in a loan, and then you go in the applicant to put what your business is located, the dollar amount that you're looking for, and that sort of thing, and it matches you with a lender. And then we also have, if you have a business loan with the SBA lending a loan currently, whether it be an EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan, or any type of SBA loan that you have, you can set up my SBA. So that's something they just started, and I think it's a great opportunity to see every single one of your loans in one place at one time. And you can make payments from there. You can send emails directly to the SBA that we've set up a specific office to handle all of these inquiries. So hopefully you'll be able to get connected and get your questions answered, especially if you have a question on one of the loans that you have. The other thing that we have on there is just a lot of resources. We have online pre-recorded training opportunities. We also have information on planning your business, launching your business, managing your business, and growing your business. So there's a lot of information. If you haven't already, please be sure to check it out. We also have the grants. This is probably one of our biggest questions that I get on a daily basis is, I'm looking for a grant for my business. Unfortunately, the SBA no longer has any grants available through the SBA. We had temporary grants through COVID, but we no longer have those. So this is just a website that we could share. It's not an SBA. We don't back it or anything. It's just since we get that question so much, I like to give it. But it's on grants.gov. And you'll see those 5 tabs for nonprofit, environment, inventions, research and development, and science and technology. And also don't hesitate to reach out to our resource partners, such as Jean's group. Sometimes since they're in a county or a city, sometimes the county or city might have some available to them. Forest group as a nonprofit get maybe Chase or other private investors might have some type of grant available. So the SBA, we're government guarantee loan program offered through participating lenders. So you do not come directly to the SBA, you go to the bank first. The bank is the one that plays the central role between you and the SBA. When you win and you for business loan, they're going to look to see if it's conventionally on their own. If they feel that it's too risky, or that maybe you don't have enough collateral to meet the requirement, they could possibly look at it to go to the SBA. But you're always going to go to the lender first, not. And the guarantee that we offer is to the lender, the risk, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. So the SBA has lots of different programs. We have the microloan programs, and we have the SBA government guarantee loan programs. We also have the 504 programs that Adam is going to talk about. And then we have other programs that I believe Laura may talk about, but I'll touch on them shortly and just tell you what they are. But SBA offers competitive terms, so we go longer period maturities where maybe a lender might go 3 to 5 years on working capital equipment. We can go up to 10. So that makes you have a better cash flow and meet the cash flow requirements that might be necessary to obtain the loan. We also have lower down payment options. Currently, it's 10% for new starts or change of ownerships, but we don't have any other requirements. That will be between you and the lender, but those are the minimum requirements that we have in place currently in the current SOP. And I say current SOP because we're getting a new SOP that's coming out. And then we also have the counseling and education side of it, right? So if you're not sure where to start and you need a business plan, you're not sure how much money you should ask for, that's where the mentoring and education come in through our resource partners. So we can help whether you're, as I mentioned, whether you're ready to start your business, if you're ready to grow, to purchase small business, whether it be an existing or from the ground up, if you're wanting to do the ground up, or if you're wanting to purchase an existing building and then do some renovations, we can do that as well. We also have lines of credit to help with those day-to-day expenses. We also have, if you're looking to purchase inventory, equipment, machinery to export, we also have some trade finance programs as well. So we have a lot. You could use our program for any business need, basically, is what this slide should say, right? The other thing that we kind of talked about lender match, but here's just a quick slide on that, and it will be in the PowerPoint presentation that you get after the class. So I'll go ahead and move forward on that. The other things that we have, SBA, this isn't an SBA program, but we do have private investors. So the SBA helps you secure capital from investors partnered with the SBA through our small business investment companies. And so the SBIC it's if you have a strong financial performance and promising prospects, you might be able to work with one of our SBICs to help you grow and expand. And they have that through the connections and expertise in your specific industries, and then also business investments through debt, equity, or a combination of both. And you can find more information on our website under funding programs and investment capital. The other program that we have is for research and development. So if your company is doing anything with research and development, you might want research and technology-based business opportunities. And these are the SBIR and the STTR programs. And they're key areas for funding you could see listed there. And you can find more information on the sbir.gov. So another program we have is a surety bond program. If you're in construction and you're needing a bond, this might be something that you could look for and help you qualify and win work if you're looking to bid on contracts. So here's the program that we're going to spend a little bit of time with. And this is on just kind of talking about the SBA main program, which is our umbrella 7A. We call it the umbrella because this is really what the SBA is about. We do have our 504 program. We'll talk, I'm going to leave that for Adam, but I'll kind of touch on it just a little bit. But one thing to note, as I mentioned, this is a government guarantee loan, and it's only through participating lenders. So we have the longer terms that I mentioned. We could go up to 25 years on real estate, and our maximum equipment and is 10 years. Our interest rate, we set a maximum that the lender is allowed to charge, but that is negotiated between you and the lender, and we'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, one of the biggest reasons why lenders use this are for those startup companies, right? So we do support those startup businesses, and that helps minimize the risk for the lender. So the program of the SBA is not for everyone, right? So if you go to the bank and they're able to do a conventional loan for you, then you wouldn't need the SBA. This is only to help minimize the risk for the lender and the loan they might not be able to without our guarantee. So some of the benefits that I mentioned is it provides funding when financing is not otherwise available on reasonable terms. Again, I talk about those longer terms because that's important. As I mentioned, for cash to repay the loan, to show your ability to repay the loan. So the longer terms help with that. The interest rate currently right now, they're just really high, unfortunately. It is based on the prime, and I think it was at 8.25%. So that is the lowest amount of an interest rate. But then the lender can charge more on top of that, depending on the term of the loan. So what makes you eligible under our program? You have to be owned and operated for profit. You have to meet our size standard, as this is a small business administration, so a small business loan to meet our size standard, but actually the size is pretty large. It either goes by the number of employee, which is 500, or the sales average, which is typically 7 million. But it can go up to, depending on if you're over that 7 million, then we can look at the alternative size standard. Or even above that, then we just look by the industry standards. Sometimes in contracting, they could get pretty high. So we look at the NICS code size for the industry standards that you are. Since it is a government funded loan, a federally funded loan, we have to be careful on the types of businesses, right, that we fund. So if it's too close to heaven or too close to hell, you might not be eligible. And when I say that, like if you have anything too religious, or if you have gambling or anything with sexual nature, then that might not be eligible. But if it's a gas station and you're selling lottery tickets, it might be. So we do have those interim shades of gray. If you're not sure, definitely reach out to our office and we can help you with that. And then we showed you the use of proceeds can be used for anything. And I won't read this list because you can see it there, but there are some restrictions. You cannot use it to pay taxes. And so there are just a few things that you cannot use it for, but I think the main thing to focus on is what you can. And so you can see there's several opportunities for the SBA program. So our maximum loan amount on our 7A is $5 million. And you can have more than one loan at a time. Let's say that you get a 504 loan for brick and mortar to purchase the real estate, but then you come back and you need a line of credit. You could definitely do that. We just cannot have more than 75% to one applicant. So that's $3.75 million is the maximum amount that an applicant can borrow. Our maximum guarantee is 85%, except on our trade loans, our export lending programs, those go up to 90%. For 85% for loans 150,000 or less, and then if it's greater than 150, then it's 75%. Currently through September 30, I think this is a great opportunity if you're looking to get a loan for your business and you're just kind of hesitant because of the interest rate. One thing to keep in mind is we do have some fee reliefs this fiscal year, and our fiscal year ends on 9/30. So it might change on October 1. So that's why I stated that this is through October 30th. But there's no fees. And so you could see back in 2022 when there were fees, it was your guarantee fee would have been $10,000. And when there was no fee relief at all, it was $11,250 on a $500,000 loan. And currently, if you went for a loan up to $500,000, there's going to be no fees. So that's a huge savings of $11,000 on your guarantee fee. So just keep that in mind if you're on the fence because of the interest rate. The fees itself might make it a little bit more into appetite to be able to take that higher interest rate. And remember, you could pay off the loan early. There's no prepayment penalty as long as the term of the loan is less than 15 years on a 7A. On a 504, it's 10 years. So the first 10 years, you'll have a prepayment penalty. But on a 7A, it's only if you have a term of 15 years or more, there's a prepayment penalty for the first 3 years. And if it's under 15 years, there's no prepayment penalty at all on a 7A loan. So we kind of talked about the straight that's negotiated between you and the lender, but this is the maximum that the lender is allowed to charge. And as I mentioned, the interest rate currently is 8.25% for the Wall Street Journal Prime, and that's the least amount. And as you can see, they could go up to 2.25 if it's less 7 years, or up to 2.75 if it's greater than 7 years. And then if it's a small loan, they can add additional points as well. We kind of talked about the maturity, so I'm going to run through that, move past that. And then these are the programs that we have available. As I mentioned, our guarantee fee for our regular 7As go up to 85% for 150,000 or less. We do have those lines of credit that lenders use the Express program for, and that's a 50% guarantee. Those go up to $500,000. And if you're a veteran and you own 51% or more of your business, there's no guarantee fee up to $500,000, and that is permanent. So even though we have a fee relief for all loans up to $500,000 currently through September 30, that could change October 1st. But as a veteran, you will not have any fees up to $500,000. So that is a permanent change that just came out. Our export programs go up to 90%, and then our Community Advantage is through our non-bank lenders and such as Lift Fund, and that would be a program that you would reach out to Lift Fund for. Or in our area, we have Lift Fund, People Fund, Capital actually does some Community Advantage when they do a 504 and they need a working capital loan, so they can use it for that as well. And then we have the 504 program that is strictly brick and mortar, and then our microloans, which actually Lift Fund is a part of that. They're part of the CDC. They do 504 loans as Lift Fund CDC. They do the microloans well, and then they do the as non-bank loans. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to just kind of, because I'm getting short. Best thing to do is start preparing your business now before the disaster, and have a great an SBA.gov /prepare that has some great information on getting started and preparing your business for those disasters now before they happen. Because unfortunately, 25% of businesses don't reopen after a major disaster because they didn't plan ahead. So it's important to make sure that you're prepared. If during a disaster and the disaster does strike, SBA does have some loans that are available. We have, whether it's real estate, if you're if it's a home, a personal address, even if you're renting, we have several different programs that are available for you. It has to be naturally declared by the president, and the maximum loan amount for home loans is 200,000, and the maximum for personal property is 40,000, and then for businesses, the maximum is 2 million. So I heard briefly when we were having conversation that Ethan is going to go in more detail about the 5 C's of credit, but I always keep it in my presentation because it's just something I think is really important. 5 C's of credit. Everybody always asks, not the first one is, do you have any grant money? The second one is, what do lenders look for? So that's why I always keep this in here, because it is a 5 C's of credit. And Ethan's might be a little bit different, but whenever you're talking financing, you're always going to hear us talk about the 5 C's of credit. They're going to look at your background, the education, the experience. Most lenders want to see that you have at least 6 months of experience in the industry that you're trying to open your business in, preferably more, but at least 6 months. They're also going to look at your credit. It's important to keep in mind that the credit is going to be both on your personal and your business. So, and then if you're an owner of 20% or more, then you're going to also have to provide a personal guarantee on the loan. And I think Ethan's going to share a little bit more on that as well. And then, of course, how are you going to repay the loan? What's the existing debt you have, the money coming in, and what expenses do you have? Can you afford getting a new debt? So that's something else that they'll look at. And what asset or what collateral do you have to pledge against the business should the loan go bad? So any assets that you currently own. And then capital, how have you put any money into the business, right? Have you invested anything? Do you have skin in the game? Before you could get someone to lend you money, they want to make sure that this is really what you want to do. And by doing that is to put money in. So as I mentioned, we have a minimum of 10% injection, but that could go up to 30% or 33%, just depending on how risky the lender feels of the loan in the business. And they're also going to look at the current trends of the industry that you're wanting to go into and the current conditions and any competitors might have. Another question that I always get is, what is a minimum credit score that a bank would look? SBA doesn't really have a requirement, but we do have a credit scoring system. And so they have to meet a minimum of 155 on our regular program. And I think it's 140, if I'm not mistaken, on our Community Advantage and Community Advantage program, 140 or 150. I can't remember the exact number. Maybe Laura, you can find that, or I could come back to that one. And then also the other thing to look at is business plan, right? We want to make sure that you have a business plan. We want to know where you are and where you're going to get and how you're going to get there, right? So a roadmap for success is what we call it. And I'm getting short on time, so you could see me speeding up, trying to hurry, but I want to just get through these to make sure I share all the information that I have. But the business plan, our partners can have classes on. We also have a template on our website if you needed it. The other thing that I want to talk about is our federal contracting opportunities. The SBA works with federal agencies to award at least 23% of all prime government contract dollars each year to small businesses. And so we have a 5% federal contracting dollars to small disadvantaged business programs for 8A. We also have 5% of federal contracting dollars to our women-owned small businesses, and then 3% of federal contracting dollars to HubZone, and 3% of federal contracting dollars to service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. You can find all that information on our sba.gov/contracting. And I did mention our other C, which is our most important, is our counseling programs. These resource partners are, even though you hear us say there's no cost to you, our resource partners have so much information that they can help you with. And at no cost, right? You just have to become a client of theirs. So definitely tap into those resource partners. If you're not in the Victoria area, you could go to our website as well as sba.gov under local resources. And some of the things that they can help you with are the business plan, expense sheets, financial statements, financial projections. I think it's really important that you go visit, especially if you're in a startup, that you go visit one of our resource partners. We have the SCORE, the Small Business Development Center, the Women's Business Center, and our Veteran Business Outreach Centers. They can help you get bank ready so that when you do go into the bank, you're going to have everything ready and it won't delay getting that loan for your business. Here's a way to keep connected with us if you're interested in subscribing to our e-newsletter. We also have Twitter at SBA_San Antonio, our district email address, and then our main phone number, and then our website locally is the San Antonio district office. And then our last slide that it brings me to before I turn it over to Adam, I believe, is next. So just, make sure that you do your research, connect with those resource partners that we have available to you. As I mentioned, there's no fee for it, and do your homework, get everything ready, your business plan, your financial proposals, know how much money you're needing and what you're needing it for, and then go in and visit with the bank. And then I'll leave you with this. There are 5 relationships every small businesses should have. One is an attorney. That attorney is going to help you with your best protection, whether it's an LLC, a sole prop, or corporation, whatever it may be. That attorney a business attorney is gonna help you determine what's the best to protect you in your business. The other one is a banker, right? It's always best to build those relationships with the banker before you need money, not after you need money. And then a CPA, they're going to help you with the best tax strategies for your type of business, whether you're an LLC or a sole prop or what. They'll be able to help you with the best tax strategies. And then the insurance agent. When you own your own business, and you have a storefront, you're going to have to protect it like you would your own home. So knowing what you need to cover in case of any emergencies happen, or if you have a fire or somebody breaks in, but also if you're having employees, you might need to know when you need to start offering insurance for those employees. And then our most important is a mentor, whether it be one of our resource partners or somebody that you trust to be honest with you when you're going down that roadmap of your business plan and you kind of go off track or try to do too much at one time. Those mentors are somebody you can turn to and make sure that you keep in line. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop my presentation and turn it back over to Jean, and then I'll let, I think it's Adam, is that right, Jean?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I think we're going to take questions at the end.
Adam, if you're on with us, go ahead and there we go. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect.
Excellent.
I've been having issues all morning, so all right, let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay, can y'all see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Perfect.
It's in it looks like native PowerPoint, but that's good. Yes.
Okay, perfect. As long as everybody can see it and you can hear me, we'll make it work. So as Jean and Annie said, my name's Adam Parker. I'm with Capital CDC. I'm here to give a brief overview of the SBA 504 loan program. So, Annie kind of touched on it a little bit, but the 504 loan program, it's SBA's economic development finance program. So really the goal here is to help small businesses, provide them long-term financing at fixed rates for basically owner-occupied real estate that's going to benefit the small business. And doing so, the hope is it's going to spur economic development in really 3 different ways. One, job creation and retention, increasing your local tax base, and then hopefully stimulating other development in your community. So typical project size, we can range anywhere from 25,000 to up to 5 million for the SBA piece. We'll kind of get into a little bit more of the SBA piece of it, because with the 504, there's multiple parties involved. We can actually, for manufacturing, we can do up to $5.5 million. SBA gives us a little bit more wiggle room for any small businesses that are in the manufacturing industry codes. And then we can also go up to $5.5 million for any non-manufacturing businesses if you implement some kind of green energy, whether that's reducing your current output by 10% or adding renewables to generate, I believe it's 15% of your usage, that allows you to tap into more SBA funding under that program. So I mentioned 504, we do it combined financing, so there'll always be a first lien lender or a commercial bank. There'll always be a CDC in a second lien position in SBA. So with that typical structure, so since there are multiple parties involved, whatever lender that we work with and partner with, they'll always be in a first lien position on whatever collateral that we're financing. They'll be in it at 50% of the cost. SBA and the CDC will be in it anywhere from 30 to 40% of the cost, and then the other 10 to 20% is what the small business would have to bring to the table as far as equity injection. So I'll get to a little bit more detail about that range, because I know I said anywhere from 30 to 40% on our piece. It really depends on a couple different items. But typical structure that we see is you have an existing business not buying special purpose collateral. We do what we call the 50-40-10 structure, where you're going to have a commercial lender doing 50% of the project, SBA and the CDC doing 40%, and the small business bringing 10% down. So here's kind of an example where we did a loan to a dental office. They looked to borrow. The total project cost was $1,881,000. The traditional commercial bank, they did a first lien for 50% of the cost. We came in and did our CDC debenture for 40%, and the borrower brought 10% down to the table. So on our 40%, we actually fixed our rate. We can do a 20 or 25-year term, and that's fixed for the life of the loan. And our rates are based off the 10-year treasury. So right now they're a lot cheaper than what you see most traditional banks do. Most banks use a Wall Street Journal Prime Index. And so that's kind of the big benefit there, is we can save you on interest rate. So as I mentioned, there are other ways that we structure these projects. So if you are a startup business or have special purpose property, SBA is going to require an additional 5% down. So that really reduces our portion that we do the long-term financing. So you kind of look at this. We did a loan for a brewery startup. Since they were startup, SBA required that they put 15% down. So in this case, total project cost was a little over $5 million. The bank did a first lien for 50% of those costs. We did a second lien for 35%, and the small business brought in 15% since it was a startup. So startups, one of the categories where an additional 5% is required. The other is a special purpose use property. Here's kind of a general list of the special purpose. Typically, the more common ones we see are hotels, C-stores, surgery centers, funeral homes, assisted living. Those kind of projects are going to be the ones that typically are going to be deemed special purpose. And then lastly, you can run into a scenario where you're both, right? You're a startup business and you are buying a special purpose property. In this case, SBA is going to require an additional 5% for each one of those exceptions. And so you'd be looking at putting 20% down, with the bank still being in a 50% first, and the CDC and SBA being a 30% second. Here's kind of an example of a project that we did recently. It was a startup car wash, so it met the definition of special purpose. So we did our 50-30-20 structure here, where the bank did a 50% first lien, we did a 30% second, and the borrower brought 20% down. So as far as eligible uses of 504, it's really to assist small businesses in buying either real estate or long-term fixed equipment We can do some construction in there as well. And we can also do some refinance as long as, what the original loan was to buy either long-term fixed equipment or real estate. We can look at refinancing it as well for the 504. We can also roll in some of our soft costs associated with the project. Typically what we see is if it's construction-based project, obviously you're going to have an architect or an engineer. We can roll some of those costs in as long as the final appraisal supports those costs, which is not typical of what most commercial lenders do. Most commercial lending, you're not going to probably be able to roll in some of those soft costs. So that's another benefit of the 504s. As long as the appraisal will support it, we can definitely roll those in. So some of the things you can't use 504 for, working capital, inventory, franchise fees, goodwill, payment of taxes, things of that nature. If you have a project that requires some of these additional things, then what we try to do is look at maybe providing a 7A loan to provide capital for these items here. So here's just some of the examples that we've done just throughout our history of typical projects. You can kind of see here over on the right, anywhere from office warehouse to manufacturing, done hotels, C-stores, a little bit of everything. As long as it's owner-occupied real estate, we can definitely take a look at it. So I touched on this earlier, but one of the things with the 504 program, since it is economic development, there is a jobs or creation or retention requirement. This has actually just been changed recently. So for every dollar, or for every $90,000 of SBA money for a non-manufacturing business, you have to create or retain at least one job. That actually increases to 140 if you are a manufacturer. But if there's a scenario where you don't meet this jobs requirement, there are ways for us to get around it. We try to use public policy goals. Typical public policy goals, if you're a veteran-owned, minority-owned, women-owned business, majority, those are typically the ones we see to get around public policy. If you're doing something green energy, that's another public policy goal. And one of the beauties of Capital CDC, since we are the largest CDC in Texas, we actually have I want to call it like a jobs table or a leftover pool of jobs. So if your particular project doesn't meet the jobs requirement and we can't pinpoint to a public policy, the way SBA looks at it is they look at it as a CDC as a whole. We have excess jobs from other projects that we can pull in to make it work. So we try to tell borrowers, don't worry about if you don't meet the jobs requirement. We usually can find ways to get around it. But that is one of the things that SBA likes to see out of this program. There are size standards. So you have to meet SBA's definition of a small business. It's a pretty generous definition. As long as your tangible net worth or your last 2 years of net income don't exceed $5 million, and that's for your small business or any other businesses that you may own that meet the definition of affiliates. That's how we test that. In all my years of doing it, I've rarely seen a deal that we couldn't deem a small business. So it's something that we have to be mindful of, but we don't run into very often. Since this is financing for owner-occupied real estate, there are some occupancy requirements that SBA requires. And it really comes down to two different factors. Are you buying existing real estate, or are you doing ground-up construction? If you're going to buy an existing building, then SBA says you have to occupy at least 51% of that space, and then you could technically sublease out the other 49. If you're going to do ground-up construction, then that occupancy actually goes up to 60%, and that's when you close. But then you have to ratchet that up to 80% within the first 10 years of you having that loan. So that's just something else to be mindful of, is if you are going to purchase real estate, you have to occupy and meet SBA's occupancy requirements. So really, overall, the benefits, there's benefits to the lenders and to the borrowers. For most lenders, this helps them mitigate risk. They're more competitive in their markets. They'll always be in a first lien on the collateral. And they're willing to do a little bit more favorable terms because they are in that first lien position. Benefits to the borrowers, like I mentioned, you're going to get a long-term fixed rate on anywhere from 30 to 40% of your project. And those rates, they're based off 10-year treasuries, so they're a lot more competitive in the market. The other thing is, you're going to bring less money down to finance this asset. Most commercial banks are going to want 20% down if you're going to do it conventionally, and using the 504 program, you can get it anywhere from 10 to 20% down. So that definitely helps you preserve capital to use for other things in your business. And then I touched on it earlier, we can roll in some of those soft costs as well that you traditionally would have to be paying out of pocket if you were doing a commercial loan. Last slide here is just, a little bit about capital. We are licensed to do 504 lending in not only Texas, but New Mexico and Arkansas. So yeah, if you have any questions about the 504 program or just want to know more, my contact information is right here. And with that, I will turn it back over to Jean.
Thank you, Adam. Guys, if you have questions for Adam or you're interested in the 504 lending program, don't forget to put your questions in the chat. And after today's presentations, Adam will be sending me his slides, and I will send you copies of them so you will have his contact information. It's really a neat program to help you continue to grow your business. And with that, we are going to ask Laura to talk about Lift Fund and the Lift Fund lending programs.
So good morning, everybody. What Annie and Adam have shared will be very similar to what I will be sharing with you. I represent Lift Fund. I'm a nonprofit CDC lender, and Lift Fund helps small businesses grow and impact the dreams, families, and communities. And what you'll see on these slides, these are really our business folks that we've helped. I'm in the Corpus Christi area. And so our mission is to provide credit and services to small businesses and entrepreneurs who don't have traditional access to loans from your financial resources, your banks, or your credit unions. And then part of our services is to provide leadership and innovation to the micro lending industry, because we do have ongoing sessions and working with our clients. I'm a banker from the early 70s, so I've seen a lot of changes throughout the years. And what I love of the different options that we have available to you is that we will look at things from the perspective as to how we looked at things in the 70s, but then we use innovative ideas to help individuals that need help now. We started in 1994. We're headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. And we continue to serve and grow, and we're now in 15 states. We are the largest nonprofit in the United States, and we're certified as a CDFI through the U.S. Department of the Treasury. And this is a picture of our footprint. I get the pleasure as a market manager, I get to talk to people across the United States as calls are coming in. So not only am I here in the Corpus Christi area and working around the coastal bend and throughout the Texas area, but I get to talk to people in Florida, people in Arkansas. And so I get to hear what's happening in their neck of the wood and how can Lift Fund be able to help them with the different loans that we offer. So we would call these a micro business lender, and that's because we can offer loans from $500 up to $500,000. As Annie stated earlier, we participate in the SBA microloan programs. We also have the 7A Community Advantage loan programs. That's up to $350,000. And Annie was asking about, what's the scoring system, and it is at 140. And this is just a methodology that we have in place that we score our loans. And then, as Adam talked about, we participate also in the larger 504 loan programs up to $5.5 million in Texas. The benefit of Lift Fund is because we're in different communities, we have lots of special loan programs, microloans for women, minorities, startups, and then different municipalities, depending on where you're located, will offer low interest rate loans. So I'm in Corpus Christi. They're offering a 5.5% interest rate loans for businesses that qualify for loans under our underwriting guidelines, and they're buying down the interest. If you're in the lower valley, Rio Grande Valley, FAR, and Laredo, McAllen, there are times we have 0% interest rate loans. San Antonio as well, they will offer those loans. Veterans, we have loans for you at 5%. And then we have other special interest programs. One specific one is through the EDA, through the U.S. Treasury Department, for the communities up to the Victoria area in multiple counties, and that's at 5%. We offer one-on-one business consultations. I office at the Small Business Development Center here at Del Mar in Corpus Christi. So I partner with the SBDC, and I most likely always will recommend that the business owners take advantage of using those services of the Small Business Development Center. And I think Annie spoke about it in her presentation. These folks are, and of course, Victoria, and I have my clients in the Victoria area, but the benefit is they're at no cost to you, and they're your best friend. They help you with your business plans, your projections. They can gather demographic information for you. And then most of our customers will continue to use those services as they continue to grow, not just as a startup, but to have them as a one-on-one advisor. We also have SCORE in my local area, and I'm part of the SCORE chapter where we have mentors that will work with you. We also have in the Corpus Christi area, it was called the Procurement Center. It's Apex now, I believe, is the new verbiage, but these individuals help you learn how to have access to different programs through different municipalities. And then online workshops are available, similar to what we're doing today through our seminars that we have with liftfund.com. And then continued working with other resources with our accelerator programs. Ethan is going to talk about the 5 C's of credit that Annie talked about, but credit is very important in our world. We use TransUnion, and I was sharing with Jean earlier that credit is a big deal now, and what's the cost of having low scores? So I always recommend before anyone goes into looking at a business loan, check your credit. Go to annualcreditreport.com to make sure that anything that's on there is correct. And if it's not, then you want to have that corrected before you apply for a loan. With Lift Fund, we're using your credit score and other information pieces to help us make a decision so that we can make the right decision best suited for your needs, whether you're a startup, whether you're existing a business owner. And we're going to look at you from a global perspective to make sure that we are making the right decision for you. I'm a storyteller, and I will tell you that one of my clients, or a potential client, called yesterday, and he said, well, are you one of those banks or institutions, and all we do is microloans, are you one of those institutions that will just say no? And I said, no, our job is to look at the package as it comes in. We're looking at your credit. We're looking at your character. We're looking at your experience in the industry that you're wanting to do, start your business or have a business ownership in. And then if you ask for a certain dollar amount, but that amount is not feasible because the capacity is not available today, or maybe there's some credit challenges and so we don't want to hamper you, then there's always an alternative. Our job is to see that we're making the right business decision for you and to help you be successful, and not to hurt you as you're trying to grow your business. We also are a collateral-based lender, and I saw where we talk about that. We do not offer any unsecured loans, so any equipment purchases you may be wanting to make, we'll look at that equipment so that we can collateralize your loan for you. So in our impact is what we've been doing throughout the many years. And it's really about job creations as well. Adam spoke about that. A lot of our programs, because we're assisting you, there is a thought process that as you're being helped, we want you to help others as well. The next slide. I can't get my slide to work. These are our clients. The majority of our clients are male. We have lots of programs for females. We've got veteran clients, and these again are our clientele. I am struggling with the presentation. How about that, Annie? There you go. Where am I? Here you go. And because we're storytellers, I have a presentation here just for you to listen to. I hope I actually allowed this to open up the sound here. 1 second. So we love to share our stories with our about our clients, and they're the ones that make it happen. If it weren't for the clients, we wouldn't be here. And we champion our small businesses. We offer affordable business loans. We offer education, and then we network with many trusted partners. I network with banks. When I was a traditional lender, as Ethan can talk to, it really would hurt my feelings if I had to turn you down. So I love that I had an ability to offer a solution for a trusted partner like Lift Fund and others. As Annie said, there's several of us that are nonprofit across the United States, but there's not many. I think we're right at a little over 100. So, but our job is to work with you, not only offer you capital, but our job is to be able to help you be successful. It's about succeeding and keeping that business running for a longer period of time. And then we just talk about, we receive donations from multiple partners. We receive referrals from other businesses. If we've done a good job, they refer their businesses that they know of that have a need for funding. And then we volunteer, and then we lend capital. You can connect with us by calling our 800 number, info@liftfund.com. I'm available throughout the week. I make house calls. And what I love about Lift Fund is that I always think of when I call my underwriter, and I was listening to Annie and then Adam, and hopefully Ethan will concur. I call when I'm not sure if we can help somebody. And I'll ask about your story. I want to know the background. And if I'm not certain it's something we can do, then I'll call the underwriter directly. I don't make the decision. I work on behalf of the business owner. And when I call, as I did this morning, and I asked a question about a need for a client that was getting very short on capital because of a large obligation that they had, the underwriter sat down and talked with me and discussed some options. And now what I can do is I can turn around and call the client and say, okay, here's a couple of options. We are a capacity lender, so we're going to still look for the ability to cash flow. We do use collateral, so we'll be looking at what we can secure the loan for. And then the industry experience. We will look at bank accounts. We're going to look at tax returns, depending on how much money you're borrowing. Any loan less than $20,000, we'll just ask for typically 3 months personal bank statements and 3 months business bank statements. All of our applications are done online. And in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be a very efficient system where you will be able to upload your documents on the final page of the application. We try to respond to the applicants once it's submitted within 24 hours. And once that application comes in, you are immediately notified that we've received your application and to anticipate a call from us within that period of time. I am the market manager and I am assisted by loan consultants. And then we work closely with our underwriting team and our loan closers. If you have questions after this, we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Laura. I've tried to put contact information in the chat for those of you who want to talk to Adam about capital CDC and their 504 program, Laura's information, Annie's information, and I will also put Ethan's in there. And with that, we're going to ask Ethan if he will talk to you about the lender's view, what you need to know when you approach that lender, what they're looking for, and really talk about those 5 C's because they are the most important thing when it comes to getting a loan.
Awesome, Jean. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to present to y'all today. Just a little bit before we jump into kind of the good material that everybody else was referencing, a little bit about Trans-Pecos Bank. We were founded back in the early 1900s out in Pecos, Texas, which is in the west side of Texas. We've got branch locations in Pecos, Alpine, and Marathon, with our headquarters here in San Antonio. So we are, on a diverse area of Texas, just like the SBDC that's provided. But there's just a bunch more information on these slides that I'll let y'all review because I really do want to spend some time focusing on what makes a good borrower. The why is we are innovative entrepreneurial leaders in the service industry. We like to deliver creative solutions to make our people, customers, and communities highly successful. So getting into what banks kind of look for when it comes to characteristics of a good borrower are the 5 C's of credit. In our presentations, Annie touched on them, Adam touched on them, and even Laura touched on them. And so it tells me that these things are extremely important when it comes to characteristics of a borrower. So capacity, into the 5 C's of credit, capacity is, do you have the ability to repay the loan? Does the business cash flow enough to repay the debt obligations that it has? The second thing that we look for on a very high level is capital. Does the business have the available liquidity to make the down payment that is required of the business? Does it have the liquidity to pay its bills, not only its debt service, which is the loan, but also does it have the availability to pay everything else? Character is the third C of credit that we look at. That is going to look at your background. It's going to look at your credit reports. We use all 3 bureaus when we pull, and that's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. We usually take what's called a tri-merge score. Take all 3 of them, add them together, and then divide by 3. I mentioned we're pulling background. We are looking at your background, kind of seeing not only your actual background history, but also kind of your resume. Do you have the experience it takes to operate the business that you're wanting to operate in? If you're looking to build a restaurant, we're looking to see, okay, do you have the experience in managing a restaurant? Do you have the experience in cooking? Things like that. The natures that would make the business highly successful. The fourth thing that we look at is collateral. What type of collateral do we have or can we take as a part of the loan? If it's a real estate-based transaction, is the value of the real estate large enough to support the loan? If it's real estate plus additional assets, is there enough to support that? Lastly, condition. What is the conditions of the borrower? What's the condition of the industries? What's the condition of what the market is doing? If from that aspect, if the borrower, if the borrower's struggling with cash flow from capacity, does that tell us the borrower's, is the condition of the borrower good or bad? That kind of makes a determining factor. There's a little bit of kind of gray area, so call it, when in all of that. Now, a borrower doesn't have to have all five of these C's met to be considered a good conventional borrower. There may be some things that are slightly lacking, but a combination of the majority are what makes of these 5 C's are what makes a good conventional borrower. Now, going into the next item that I'd like to talk about is also a good conventional borrower is usually prepared. There's some standard financial items that we need in kind of assessing the quality of a borrower. So some standard financial items, which you're going to hear Adam and Laura and Jean and even Annie talk about, are items that banks and other parties need to review what kind of makes the borrower a good conventional borrower. Does the business have tax returns? Does the guarantors have tax returns? Does the guarantor have a personal financial statement? Does the business have financial statements? Are there projections for the business? Now, some of this stuff is applicable. If it's a startup business, are they going to have tax returns? Probably not. Same thing with financials. If it's a startup business, meaning it's non-operational, are there going to be financial statements? No. That's where that last item, projections, come into play. If it's a startup, we'd say, okay, let's look at the first 24 months on a month-to-month basis. How does the business project to do on those first 24 months? Those kind of help us gauge whether or not we can make a determination of whether it's a good conventional borrower, or we need to go into some of these other avenues like Annie and Laura and Adam have been talking about. So those items those 2 slides culminating together kind of help us determine whether or not it's good or conventional. Now, from a bank standpoint, we're going to take all of this information that we've got. We've looked at your 5 C's. We've looked at these, just an initial list of items and making a determination. Now, sometimes, after we look at that, sometimes we may get to the determination that they may not fit quite right for a conventional loan product. So then we do access these other avenues that we have, whether it be a 7A or 7A SBA loan, or we refer a business out to one of the CDCs or LIFT funds saying, hey, this is what we have, they may be a better fit for you. Now, these have been great partners with us, and so it's a very fluid transaction. Going on the path of a conventional borrower, the bank's kind of process is usually done in 5 stages. We have intake stages, which usually consist of a phone call and an email introduction. Typically at this time, if the deal is right, it will result in a term sheet. Now, the term sheet is going to have basic loan terms, i.e. the loan amount, the maturity date, the kind of repayment terms, kind of just those basic little things to go over it. Now, that is a little bit more detailed, but those are high level. After we get the term sheet signed and executed back, we'll move into what's called the packaging stage. It's just basically of us gathering materials. It's gathering that personal financial statement. It's gathering the business financial statements. It's gathering the tax returns, etc. At this stage, we'll also order an appraisal in a phase 1 or any additional third parties needed. Appraisals in phase 1s are subject to real estate only. We may get business valuations or fixed asset evaluations if the business has heavy concentrations in those types of things. Now, once the packaging process is complete, we'll move it into underwriting. Our underwriter reviews all of the materials provided. They're going to ask me questions as the lender because I've sourced all of the initial information, but I may ask questions of the borrower if it doesn't quite make sense. At that point in time, the underwriter, the lender, myself, and the borrower all work together to get the loan towards loan approval. Typically during this stage, this is when credit gets pulled. Then the backgrounds get pulled and reviewed, and all of that kind of character portion comes together. During the underwriting stage, they look at the capacity, they look at the financial statements, they say, okay, does the business have the capacity to do this loan? At this stage, what the appraisal is usually comes back within this stage. So then we look at, okay, did the property appraise in order to support the loan? Now every industry is different, but on a traditional owner occupied, so meaning the business owns the real estate it's running in, we can lend up to 85% of the loan value. Now there's an up to value, correct? And so we'll look at that. Did the appraisal come in, and do we have at least enough value there to equal to an 85% loan to value? That's just an example of one. Now, like I said, that changes from all over the place. The last thing we're kind of look at in this stage really is capital. Where is the equity from the borrower coming from? Is it coming from just cash the business has saved, or are there additional alternative methods? Now, this is all conventional. We can go in, if we determine that conventionally the borrower may not be a good fit for a conventional product, then we adhere to the SBA standard operating procedure and kind of evaluating our credits from there. After we've gotten through underwriting and we've got our loan approval, we get to the more exciting stage, the closing stage, right? This means that we've gotten loan approval, we've gotten all of our due diligence back, and we're ready to move forward with closing. Closing documents are going to be prepared, and we're going to send them to the borrower to review. I know Annie mentioned kind of the 5 important things that all businesses should have. One is the attorney. Typically at this stage, if you're working with an attorney, you have your attorney review the loan document. That's just kind of, it helps you understand exactly where your loan documents are. So then if the borrower has any comments, we kind of negotiate loan documents. But at this stage, we're kind of finalizing our checklist. We're wrapping up everything that we're working on and we're working together on. We're crossing all of our T's, dotting all of our I's, and checking all of our boxes. Do we have everything that we need in order to close this loan? Once we get that final sign off saying we've got everything we need to close, we will fund. At that point in time, loan docs are signed. In those loan documents that are being signed, you'll see a promissory note, which is a promise to pay. You'll see a loan agreement, which typically governs the loan and how it operates. But most importantly, you'll see what's called a personal guarantee, or a guarantee for businesses. A common thing that banks run into is if the person has to personally guarantee it. Most of the time, we are going to require a personal guarantee on all of our loans. That means the business is going to be on the hook for the debt. If the business can't service the debt, we're going to look towards the guarantor. Can the guarantor service the debt? At that point in time, you'll see the business have something reported to the credit bureaus, but you'll also see this loan show up on your personal credit report as a contingent liability, meaning you're not a signer on the debt, but you guarantee the debt, which basically means the same thing in a roundabout way. So that's going to kind of be new to a lot of businesses. That is a common question that I get. Do I have to personally guarantee the debt? Most of the time, the answer is yes. So that is something that we do encourage our borrowers to look at when we're negotiating on the loan documents. Look at the guarantee. Do you understand the guarantee? Are there any questions behind it? So then once all of that is done, the docs are signed, they come back to us, we fund, and we officially close. Typically at that point in time, the bank and the borrower will be on some type of routine follow-up basis. I personally check in with my borrowers at least once a month. If it's a little bit, if it's a longer term loan that was to buy real estate, I may check in once a quarter. I don't want to overwhelm my borrowers. But typically, if it's a manufacturing borrower or somebody providing goods or services to someone or another or other companies, I like to follow up on kind of a monthly basis. It helps me understand exactly where my borrowers are, how they're doing, if they've got any questions, but also kind of just to build that relationship behind everything. Now, to kind of wrap up what I'm, talking about, all of these kind of items touched on kind of make what we determine the case of a good conventional borrower. Again, if we don't feel that, just because we don't meet everything to make a good conventional borrower, that doesn't disqualify you from working with the bank. At that point in time, we start exploring our ancillary avenues that we have, and partnering with the SBA and partnering with CDC or Capital CDC and with Lift Fund. If you'd like to get in contact with me, I've displayed kind of some information. You can email me at that email. Also, you can access information about Trans-Pecos and its services at the website below, and just give us a call with any types of comments and or questions.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. So guys, if you have questions, now is a great time. You can put it in the chat, or you can just raise your hand. I'll call on you and you can ask your question. These are the folks who know all the ins and outs of lending, much more so than I do. So I would really encourage you, ask your questions now. We've tried to include everyone's contact information so that you do have that, and you certainly are free to contact any of the presenters with further questions directly as well. And I want to thank Annie and Adam, Laura, and Ethan for being with us today. It's been a wonderful time. I know some people get very scared when it comes to talking about lending, and that. Go ahead, Ethan. Let's see here. We had a hand up. If you want to go ahead and I'm not seeing any further hands. You're going to get an email from me tomorrow, and in that it will have copies of all the slides. And in addition, there'll be a link. We will post our recording. There'll be a link to that. We did manage to get the presentations recorded. And on the slide right now, you can get in touch with us. There's going to be a link to a survey. We do have a 5-question survey. We want you to let us know how we've done. And if there are any additional resource materials, we will add that in the packet as well. So you look for that email from me tomorrow. And I am not seeing any further questions. So with that, I want to thank everybody for taking time out to be with us today. It's been a great conversation. Every time we do this one on financing, I learn so much more. So thank you for being intentional and sharing your time with us. And we will see you at our next webinar. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Jean.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jean.
Jean. Thank you, everyone.